Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello. Once again, Gary here for Bizarre Brain Comics. This is where I like to take a look at some older stuff, older comics, and talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and then examine the stories and the art. Well, and in keeping with our spooky October Halloween fest here, I want to talk a little bit about this book right here. Giant-Sized Werewolf. It's Werewolf by Night, number 2. Giant-Sized Werewolf number 2. It's about, it's Werewolf by Night, but it's a mashup. It's a monster mash with the Frankenstein Monster and Werewolf by Night. Kind of reminiscent and probably more action-packed than the classic Frankenstein meets the Werewolf movie, which you just watched again last night. Oh. This is from 1974, Marvel Comics. Don't have a whole lot to say about it in the big book of knowledge, but I got a little bit. Ooh! Giant-Sized Werewolf number 2 from Marvel Comics, 1974. That's Frankenstein versus Werewolf by Night. Written by Doug Moench. Penciled by Don Purlin, and unfortunately inked by Vince Colleta. And as I said, it's reminiscent of Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. But it sports a great Gil Kane cover. And the story is a little bit longer. With ads, I think it was 36 pages. So it's probably 29 or 30 pages total story, including the splash page. So let's get right into it. With Giant-Sized Werewolf and Frankenstein's Monster. Here, let's see it better. Better view of that cover. Giant-Sized Werewolf. New Man-Beast versus Man-Monster. The Monster of Frankenstein. No matter which creature wins, the girl dies. Bonus, more tales of mystery and macabre. Yeah, because it has, for backup, it's got some suspenseful reprint stories from the 50s or early 60s. Including a Steve Ditko monster story. You can see this cover is drawn by the great Gil Kane. Oh, great anatomy, great dynamism, very action-packed image here of the werewolf sinking his claws and his fangs into the body of the Frankenstein monster. And the interior art, of course, is Don Purlin. And Don Purlin, he was born in 1929. He's an American comic artist, writer, and editor. And he's best known for Werewolf by Night, Moon Knight, which he was co-creator of. Because Moon Knight had his first appearance in Werewolf by Night. The Defenders and Ghost Rider. And he co-created Bloodshot for Valiant Comics in the 90s. And at the age of 14, he started studying under Bern Hogarth, who was the great Tarzan artist on the Tarzan comic strip at that time. Bern Hogarth. That was before Hogarth had his school. He was just giving classes in his apartment and stuff on weekends. And while taking those classes under Hogarth, he became friends with another student who was there by the name of Al Williamson. Yeah, Al Williamson, who's another great comic artist and comic strip artist. Did a lot of science fiction and adventure stuff for EC, and also did some Flash Gordon stuff. And he did a lot of inking for Marvel in the 80s. Then later he studied at Hogarth's School for Cartoonists and Illustrators. In the late 40s, he broke into the comics field at Fox Features. And into the 50s, he did work for Ziff Davis Publications and others, and found his niche doing horror comics at Harvey and Atlas, later Marvel, and even a little bit on the Spirit. And he was drafted in 53, there for like 2 years. After that, he did more comics for Charlton. And when work got scarce, he did some technical illustration and product package design. He did some work for Classics Illustrated and others, and then back to Marvel in 74, and he had a long association there. So, that is a little thing on Don Purlin. Don Purlin. Here we have the splash page. Now, as I said, what's one thing that's so great here is that both of these characters, just a couple of years, had been introduced just a few years before, and both of these characters as versions of the Frankenstein Monster and Werewolf by Night had initially been illustrated by Mike Plug, and he did an outstanding job on that. This is the kind of stuff, as well as Ghost Rider. He did a lot of really great stuff for that. The horror stuff was his best niche. The horror stuff, Planet of the Apes, and he had a short stint on Cull. He did great work on that. And so, but here we have the splash page, not depicting an actual scene, just giving you the idea. But as I said, unfortunately, it was inked by Vince Colleta. Now, even Don Purlin couldn't do this stuff as good as Mike Plug could have. It would have been nice if he could have done this, for example, because he worked on both of them so early on, and I think it would have been better. But Don Purlin's art was a very commendable job on here. Unfortunately, I think Vince Colleta's inks kind of hindered it. Vince Colleta he did a lot of inking. His best work, I think, overall, is on the romance comics. His style fits best with romance comics, and but he did a lot of inking, and his style is stiff. He kind of stiffened everything up, so it doesn't look as nice as it should. And here, I'm gonna just kind of rush through this because it is longer. But here you can see that splash panel on the first page of the story. The Frankenstein Monster I think it's in New York, in an alley. He's kind of creeping up on these two guys there at the end of the alley, hearing them talk about, oh yeah, they're having a hard time getting work and stuff because people just don't like their looks. And why can't people just get beyond looks, and give someone a chance? Then they hear the creature behind them, and they turn around, take one look at him, and off they go. Holy crud! Because he thought they might be friendly towards him, because of what they were saying. And then they did exactly what they were accusing everyone else of, judging him on his looks. So he's kind of dejected. And he hears about something at the wharf. Hearing these old guys here talking about something in the paper about this guy, he can do a soul transplant. And this guy in California, this real flaky stuff. He's a crackpot thing, and he could do some, but he can like do a soul transplant or whatever. And it turns out it's some kind of mystical, new agey mumbo jumbo. But he thinks, he thinks to himself. Of course, we don't see him because we don't ever see any thought balloons. It's all indicated that if he gets out there, maybe they can help him. He goes to get on this train. Guard goes to stop him. He's horrified by his appearance and just swatted him away and gets on the train. And as he's riding the rails, of course, he gets hungry. There are rats there, and he has to munch down on the rats. Come down. See, and you can see here the fine artwork. It's nice and gives the mood, good visual storytelling. But as I said, it's stiffened up by Vince Colleta's inking. And then the train stops. We're at an unscheduled stop. He hears the cops outside. Yeah, they're looking for the guy who had attacked that guard at the rail station. And this is, it got all the way out there. So yeah, they say this is the train that the guy would have been on. And so the creature, because remember, he's super strong, and he smashes through the opposite side to get away. Unbeknownst to him, it was on the edge of a cliff overlooking the sea, and it's a long way down. Bloop, and he even hits on the way down. Well, if that was him, he's dead now. Well, they're not reckoning with the Frankenstein Monster, and this is a good bit here. The pacing, you see, because as you can see, almost like animation. See the creature as he's washed up on the shore. Now we have an interlude. Going to get ready for part 2. Here we see in this weird culty looking place, and this girl. This is Lisa Russell. She is the sister of Jack Russell, the werewolf by night, and she's talking to the guy who's the head of this cult that she had joined because she thought they could do something to help her brother, who's the werewolf. Well, she said, it's all a bunch of crazy stuff, and you're talking about human sacrifice? No way! I'm getting out of here. So she gets in her car, takes off, boom, goes back home. I don't know what I'm going to do now. And then crash, the cultists smash into her apartment and snatch her because they're going to, because you just don't quit this cult. And they're going to use her for human sacrifice for a ritual that's coming up. Jack gets to her place. Oh my gosh, what's going on? Sees the place is trashed, and then they have this, the Brotherhood of Baal will punish betrayal with your blood. Oh my gosh. He tries to get on the phone, and he was disconnected. Gets in his car and rushes over to his friend Buck's place. He says, Buck, give me all the dope you've got on the Brotherhood of Baal. Fast. Yeah, because he's a reporter. And come on. Says, I know you're working on an article on him. So he tells him, yeah. Said, oh yeah, organized Satanist fronted by millionaire Danton Vela. And that's the guy who the old men were talking about from the paper, doing the soul transplant. So Buck's trying to stop Jack. The sun's, you can't do anything. The sun's going down, and it's a full moon tonight. Well, he's taken off, and he's taken off. He's going to this place, and see he's sweating. And this would have been more dramatic, I think, without Vince Colleta's inks. I mean, he does a good job on the figures and everything, but it's just stiff. Had it, as I said before, had this been a romance story, it would have worked perfectly. And the moon has risen, and he starts transforming, changing, and becoming the Beast. Commercial. And of course, the Beast can't drive the car. He jumps out of the car, and as the car crashes. But everything was set in his mind. He had to get there to save his sister. Everything was set in his mind, and I just spilled my tea on the comic book. And as the Beast, he continues on. There's this overlook. This looks kind of like Tony Stark's place in the movies. It's overlooking the cliff. It's like this mansion, and he's heading there. And inside there's this guy, Nathan Vela, and said, "This is incredible. I've heard rumors of his existence there." As people are talking about the creature, because the creature, they've found the creature approaching them. And he said, "Can it truly be that the creature is Frankenstein's monster? And that somehow he's learned of our experiments in soul transference? It is. It must be. This is a sign from Almighty Satan." And he talks, and he can't speak, which is, I think, is kind of odd, because I thought in the earlier stories that the creature could speak, as well as in the book. And he gives it, but using signs and gestures, grabbing this fella here, and pointing at him and pointing at himself in the mirror, and then smashing the mirror. Oh yes, it is exactly what he wants. We're going to do the experiment, but the experiment requires a sacrifice. And so, he's reveling in his heart. Tonight, the Brotherhood of Baal shall commune with Satan himself. Here we go. Next chapter. Here they're starting the ritual. All the cultists are gathered around the altar, and there's the girl, Lisa. She's going to be the sacrifice. She's going to be the sacrifice. And the werewolf gets there. And she goes, "Sacrifice for shunning the Dark Lord's coven. Untie her and place her on the sacred altar of Satan." That's when, and there's the creature standing right there, still thinking that they're going to help him. And then, crash! There you go, crash! The werewolf smashes through and tears right into the middle of the cultists. But then he's confronted by the Frankenstein Monster, and then they go at each other. The Beast and the man creature, inflicting damage, harming one another, evading. Good action, good visual storytelling, and so that you can see what's going on. And here we go. This is what the image that the cover was based on, but it was the werewolf is knocked unconscious, and he comes to. He has been placed on the altar because he'd make a better sacrifice, and then they'll still sacrifice the girl. Said, "We thank thee, beloved Satan, for sending this wolf demon among us, and we bow to thy will that his blood is better suited to honor thy name." And there's this weird sacrificial blade, and the werewolf says, "And thank thee for the glorious moment when Satan's spirit will be brought to earth to inhabit the body of Frankenstein's monster." So now the creature hears that. That's not what he had in mind. And as the silvery blade is about to be plunged into the beast's heart, the creature stops it, picks the guy up. That's not what he had in mind, and tosses him against the wall where they have the upside down cross. He slams into that while he's on the ground stunned, trying to get back up. It falls off the wall, crushing and killing him. And then the others, they're all, "He killed the high priest Vela!" So they grab all the torches in there, because remember, the creature is afraid of fire. And They're attacking him. That gives the werewolf the chance. He snaps his bonds, and into the fray he goes. And there's slashing and beating everyone, throwing the bodies around. And the girl manages to burn her through her bonds so she can get free. She takes off as the it's a holocaust. There's the blazing fire around them, people being consumed. She gets out just as Buck gets there, and the entire mansion is engulfed in flames. Oh no, Jack's in there, we gotta help him. No, and he's the werewolf, and there's a monster in there with him. Then it collapses and falls into the sea, dousing the flames, taking all the cultists with him. Oh no, it's Jack. Oh, I'm afraid. But then we see at the shore's edge 2 sets of footprints on the sand coming out. So yes, both the creature and the werewolf by night have survived, as one would expect. That was a good thrill-packed adventure. You can see, I have some of the backup here. I don't know who did this. Some nicely drawn stuff. Here we got the Ditko, the 8-man. I wanted to just briefly show you that. And that's what we have for the giant-sized werewolf by night with the Frankenstein Monster and werewolf by night in combat and then teaming up together. Oh, that's a thrilling, not really spooky, but it's still in the horror vein of fighting the cultists. That's great. Had it been darker and I think better inked, it would have been much better. But it was well illustrated, but couldn't have compared had it been Plug. That's just my opinion. And thank you for joining me. Please like, share, subscribe, and remember. Leave a comment. And remember, comics are art.